everybody.
Only one each.
There's only one each. There's one for everyone in the room. So share.
As your mom told you, sharing is caring. So share.
Are you happy to be your Valentine?
I mean, I'm open. I have a slot. Happy. The question is, do you want to be my Valentine? I don't know about that. All right, I do have to give credit to Robbie. He's the one who got the cookies. So thank you, Robbie. He comes in for the cookies. Turkey Day, whatever, Thanksgiving Day, he got cookies. Anyway, good afternoon, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day, happy Galentine's Day, happy Anti-Valentine's Day, however you celebrate. We appreciate you and we welcome you. Josh, I say this all the time. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
It feels like it's been forever.
Hey, too long.
All right,
On
the
that
floor
note,
is yours.
Let's get to the two subjects.
Okay.
One is the perpetual hot item as of late. The U.S. shot down 3 objects from the sky that are now deemed to be benign. Louisiana Senator John Kennedy says they can't find the pieces. Should the U.S. have waited before shooting, and what are the protocols going to be going forward?
So I'm going to take your last question first. As you know, the president has asked Jake Sullivan to oversee a interagency team that was created so that we can figure out the protocols on how to move forward when and if this occurs again. And so I believe my colleague from National Security Council, the Admiral, spoke to this moments ago at 10 o'clock during his gaggle and talked about how we'll have more protocols to share later this week. So there is, again, a interagency team that's going to look at this process, look how we track, look how we decide to take action, and see if there's anything else that needs to be done. So there will be updated protocols, if you will, by the end of this week. So that's that question. The first one, look, you know, and again, you've heard from Secretary Austin on this, you've heard from DOD on this, you've heard from my National Security Council colleagues. Again, as you all know, the objects that were shot down were in the civilian airspace, kind of flying low elevation, and so it was shot down. They were shot down because of we were taking abundance of caution. We wanted to make sure Americans were safe. We wanted to make sure that the civilian aircraft flying above in our airspace were safe, and that's why they were taken down. The 3 objects, as you all know, they are now being recovered. The weather conditions have prevented for the Pentagon to go out there and get those objects, but we're going to continue to try. We're going to continue to be vigilant on getting the debris. But in the meantime, as you just mentioned, the benign statement, the intelligence community did say that they are considering or looking at this to be potentially benign. But of course, we want to make sure that we get the objects so we can actually, or the debris from the objects, just to be more clear, so we can get a sense of what the objects were for certain. Okay.
Thanks, Karine. Going back to the intelligence community's conclusion, what led them to conclude that these objects could very well be benign?
So, not going to get into the kind of the intelligence community process. What I can say is that they are considering. There's strong consideration that these objects are indeed benign, but just not going to get ahead of their process here.
Senator after senator at this all senators briefing this morning wanted to know when the president is going to come forward and speak to the American people. I mean, the U.S. does not shoot objects out of the sky every day. Why hasn't the president come forward and spoken to the American people about this?
So I know your colleague asked my colleague this earlier today during his gaggle. And look, the president is taking this very seriously, and he's receiving briefings regularly from his national security advisors, and he's going to continue to do that. We are sharing as much information as we can, as possible, but we do want to make sure that the American people understand that there's no need to panic. The president took this action, as I mentioned earlier, because the objects were indeed flying at lower elevation, and they were in civilian airspace, and we wanted to make sure that we protected that airspace. But again, we want to also make sure that the Americans are not do not panic during this time.
A question about the process. Can the Pentagon shoot down an object without presidential approval, or does he need to give his okay first?
I can tell you this process and what occurred during the three objects, and also, as you know, the Chinese surveillance balloon. The president was indeed very involved, and the president listened to the recommendations clearly that he got from the Pentagon, and he took action as commander-in-chief. I don't have anything further beyond that on any other protocols or how it's normally done, but I can say we also, the standing up of this interagency team is going to help provide us, give us some additional protocols on how to move forward on these issues.
And then just a question about the salvage operation. I know that the teams haven't been able to get to the debris yet. Have the salvage teams been able to locate the debris?
That's a really good question. I would have to refer you to the Pentagon on this, on the specifics, if they've been able to locate it. What we know is the weather conditions have indeed prevented them in these three locations to actually retrieve the debris. But again, there's intensive operation underway. We want to make sure that we get the debris from the object. We believe that it's important for us to do that. The president believes it's important to do that. Just don't have anything further on that. Okay.
Not to belabor this point, but on the criticism of coming from the lawmakers that the president hasn't spoken out more on this, should we expect to hear from him at some point, or is part of the reason that we're not hearing from him because, as you said, people shouldn't be panicking? Is there a concern that the president?
I don't have any announcement or anything to preview on a potential remarks by the president. What we're trying to do here is provide as much information as we can. The president clearly has been briefed on a regular basis on this, on a daily basis, on what has occurred in the last 10 days or so. But I just don't have anything to preview as to if the president's going to be speaking on this in the upcoming days.
Thanks, Karine. You've looked at this, but the timeline in terms of the interagency group agreeing on protocols or having a better idea on protocols, what is that exactly, and will those be published, will it be public, will they be talked about or presented?
You'll definitely hear from us when those protocols are completed or laid, and we'll lay those out. I believe my colleague mentioned later this week, you'll hear what those protocols look like from this interagency team, and so we'll have more to share by the end of the week.
And then if these objects are benign, is there any concern that there was an overreaction in terms of shooting them down?
So I'm not gonna get ahead. I'm not gonna get ahead of what what is actually the final word on this. What we know is the intelligence community is considering as a leading explanation that these could be tied to commercial or research entities and benign. That is something that the intelligence community has looked into. But again, we got to get the debris from the objects that we're trying to we're trying to get out of the locations. Again, because due to the weather condition, it's been very difficult. But clearly, that is a priority as well.
Karine, happy Valentine's Day.
Happy
Thank you
Valentine's
for the
Day.
cookies. Have any private companies or research institutes contacted the U.S. government in any form to say that one of their flying objects is missing?
No, we have not yet been
Has
contacted.
the U.S. done anything to reach out to companies that could operate similar sized flying objects either here in the U.S. or elsewhere?
I don't have anything to preview or report on that.
Then I guess there's the sense that, if this belongs to somebody, if it is benign, obviously it remains a possibility. You'll know more when you find this in the Yukon and elsewhere. But for those who may fear legal liability, let's say, that they were flying in civilian airspace or the like, what do you say to anybody out there who is watching this conversation and may be hesitant to come forward to the U.S. government to say it's our object that is missing?
It's a good question. Again, I don't want to get ahead of the military or the intelligence community as they're trying to really figure out what these objects are. Again, what I said before is that the intelligence community is considering as a leading explanation, which is the commercial or research entities and it being benign. But again, it's a leading thinking that's coming out of the intelligence community. I just don't want to get ahead of them.
So to be clear today, you can't say to the cameras, if you had an unknown object out there and it's missing, we're asking you to come forward to the...
It's just not something that I'm going to do from here. But I appreciate the question. Okay.
This might seem like a silly question, but does debris actually exist? Is the U.S. government confident that there is debris from these objects, or were they destroyed in the process of being taken down?
From what I understand, and the Department of Defense and the Pentagon clearly would know more specifics on this, there is debris out there, and we're trying to have an intensive operation to get that debris from the objects. But I would refer you directly to the Pentagon.
When the interagency review is done, will Jake Sullivan come here to brief?
Calling Jake. I don't have anything to read out to you on who would be joining if that were to occur later this week. And we're saying that we'll have information. I just don't have anything else to share beyond that. Go ahead, Michael.
So two more balloon questions. The National Weather Service website here says that 900 that weather balloons are released around the world from 900 locations twice a day, every single day of the year, including 92 released by the National Weather Service in the U.S. That they fly for at least 2 hours a day, drift as far as 125 miles in the ground. If it turns out, as it looks like, that the president and Mr. Trudeau sent Top Gun fighters to blow weather balloons out of the sky, does the president regret that, and is he embarrassed by that?
I'm not going to get ahead of what of any final decision. We just don't know yet. We actually just don't know. And as I've said, as my colleague has said from NSC, it is in consideration that could be the leading explanation here. Again,
Is the president embarrassed by that?
No,
the idea that you would take hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment?
Michael, let me answer the question. I don't think the president should be embarrassed, right, by the fact that he took action to make sure that our airspace, civilian airspace, was safe. I don't think that he should.
I'm sorry.
No, but I'm answering the question. I am answering the question, right? The president took action because we did see that these objects were in the airspace of civilian airspace, and so to protect the civilian airspace, the president took action. He took recommendation by the Pentagon to take that action. I don't want to get ahead of what will be the final analysis, right, of what the objects may have been or may not have been. So don't want to get into a hypothetical here. But look, the president does everything that he can, everything in his power, right, to defend, to track, and to protect our airspace. And that's what you should glean from what the actions that this president took.
And then one follow-up, which is there's a lot of criticism out there that what really drove the president's decisions in the latter three shoot-downs was an overreaction, a political overreaction to the criticism that he took on the Chinese spy balloon for waiting too long. In other words, that he was criticized for waiting too long in the first balloon, and so the reaction, the overreaction, the critics would say, is that he moved too quickly to shoot down the other ones before even knowing obviously what they were. How do you guys respond to that?
I'll respond to it this way. Two different things, right? The Chinese surveillance balloon, completely different operation, if you will, a complete different situation, if you will. It was a balloon, as you all know, that was a Chinese surveillance balloon. The president's number one thing was to make sure that we kept American civilians safe. He took recommendations from the Pentagon, who said that we should follow the path And he agreed, they followed the path, but he also said the moment that they can to shoot it down, and that's what occurred. But let's remember what happened while the balloon was on its path. We were able to collect data from it. We were able to protect our security data on the ground and learn from the Chinese surveillance balloon. That's what we were able to do. And when it got over an area where it was safe, where we were able to collect, because we are collecting the data that's on the not the data, but the debris, right, that's on the ocean floor, and learning more about its capabilities. And when we were able to do that, they shot it down. And so we're going to learn a lot more because of the action that the president took and because of the action that the Pentagon took, right, with the recommendation that they provided with the president. So that's a different scenario. It's not the same. And as I just mentioned, with the objects, they were in civilian airspace. So the president took action to protect our civilian airspace. The elevation was a little bit lower, and he took that action.
They were in the civilian airspace with
two different
dozens, scores of balloons that are also in the civilian airspace every day.
I hear you, and I know that you just read me the national weather data or numbers of balloons. I get that. I don't know those numbers. That's the first time that I'm hearing about them. I appreciate you sharing it with all of us. But what I'm telling you is what I can give you from our vantage point, how we move forward. The Chinese surveillance balloon was very, very different than what we saw with these three objects.
Okay. Thank you, Karine. Just real quickly, when the interagency effort comes up with its recommendations later on this week, will you be releasing those to us or talking to us about them?
So we will definitely have more to share later this week on that. I don't have a vehicle or how it's going to be shared to all of you, but clearly the president thought it was important to get this done. That's why he asked for this to be stood up, and that's why he asked for Jake Sullivan to run this process. I just don't have anything else. We will have more to share later this week. I just don't have like a vehicle on how that's going to occur.
Is that part of what the president is waiting for, and before he talks to the American people about this?
No, I just don't have anything to read out or to share about a statement or remarks from the president. Again, he takes this very seriously. He's being kept updated on a regular basis on this, clearly, but just don't have anything to share.
On the missile that missed over and is now at the bottom of Lake Huron, will there be a recovery effort? There was a Congressman, Chris Stewart, on the Intel Committee who expressed some concern that there's highly classified information on those missiles, even if it's been, rendered not armed anymore.
I would refer you to the Pentagon.
President Obama gave a national address from the Oval Office in 2010 to discuss the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. When fighter jets are shooting down unknown aerial objects over U.S. territory, doesn't that also warrant a national address from the president?
Again, don't have anything to read out on the president's speaking to this. What I can tell you is the president takes this very seriously. He's been briefed multiple times on a regular basis about the objects and what is currently occurring, and trying to get the debris and get a sense of the analysis and get the capabilities of not just the debris, but also the Chinese surveillance balloon. And he'll continue to be updated on those matters. I just don't have anything else to share. Okay, guys, thank you so much. All right, have a great day. Happy Valentine's Day. Don't eat too much cookies.